Hey everyone, Dan from ON1 here. I wanted to talk to you today about borders and how to add them and get the most out of them on your photos. If you're a photo frame user, you're going to love this. We're going to be working inside of effects today. That's where really most of the border power lives, inside of ON1 Photo or ON1 Effects. Now there's a ton of borders that come built in, but there's also a bunch more that you can get online on our website, including all that original photo frame content. Let's talk about how to go border shopping first. I want to click on the preset drawer to open it up if you didn't have yours open already. Make sure you're on the filters tab and then click on the borders category. You'll see your photo with a bunch of different borders applied to it. This is the quickest and easiest way to go shopping for borders. Now, one thing to keep in mind though is this is not all of the borders that are built in. We just kind of put in our favorites, the most common ones that a photographer is going to want. Things like a filed out negative carrier to create a sloppy border, or ground glass from the back of a camera, or different film edges. You can always view these larger by clicking right here on the Quick View Browser button, and that'll give you a much larger full screen view. You can click on one of these and use it as is, or you can adjust it in the borders pane. However, if you're a real border master, let me show you how to create your own. I'm just going to close up that preset drawer, come over here to Overall Settings, click on Add Filter, and Borders. When the Borders filter shows up, I can go to the Category drawer to select which category of borders I want to apply. They're divided up into categories to make them easier to find, and as I mouse over each category, I kind of get a sample of what's inside of it. If I've added any categories of my own from importing, they'll appear down here at the bottom in the My Borders section. And again, any of the borders that you used to use in Photo Frame, you can download off the ON1 website now, import them in automatically, and this is where they'll show up in the same categories they used to be inside of Photo Frame. I'm going to start with something very simple. I'm just going to go to the Simple category, and then in the Border pop-up, you can see all the borders within that category, and I'm going to use the white square keyline. This is a simple, classic look, and it's a great place for me to show you all the power that you have inside of the border pane. All right, once you've picked the border you want to use, you can control its blending mode right here from the Mode pop-up. Now, most of the time you're going to leave this at normal, but let me show you some of the cool options you can get by changing the blending mode. Maybe I want to use something like soft light or overlay to create a much more dramatic look for that border. And I can also use the opacity slider to control how strong the border is applied. I can make it very subtle or very strong. I could even do that with the normal opacity and turn it down to create kind of a ghosted border look. But for this tutorial, I'm going to keep it at normal and 100. The next section down allows you to control the color and the brightness and the saturation of the border. We're going to come back to that in a minute. Before I get there, let's talk about the thickness and the fit image slider. The thickness slider allows you to control how thick the border appears on your photo, from non-existent to thin to very thick. The fit image slider does the opposite. It helps you fit your image inside of the border. You notice that when the border is applied, I'm cutting off part of my image underneath it. By moving the fit image slider up, my image gets smaller proportionately inside of the border frame, so that I can have as much of my photo uncropped as I want, just like that. All right, now let's say I want to change the color of my border. Now, if your border already has color in it, you can just simply move the hue and saturation and brightness sliders. But if you're dealing with a border that is all white or all black or monochromatic and you want to add a color, you'll need to check on the colorized checkbox right here. There we go. Now, if I want to make it a gray border, here's what I would do. Take the saturation slider and turn it all the way down, then take the brightness slider and start to reduce it. And as I reduce the brightness slider down, you'll see the white border becomes gray. The more I reduce it, the darker the gray becomes, just like that. So that's an easy way to change what your border looks like. Now let's say rather than gray, I want my border to be the same color as this wall. All right, that's easy to do. I'll just bring the brightness back up until the brightness is about the same. There we go. Then I'll bring my saturation slider up. I'm going to bring it up just a little bit, and then adjust the hue slider towards that same sort of a yellow value. Maybe just a little brighter. There we go, until I get something about like that. Now that's a subtle border. If you wanted to go over the top, you can easily make that border any color you wanted. Let's say I really want to make it like the blue of the sky instead. To do that, just bring your saturation up and your color shift towards the blue. Bring your brightness down as well. There you go. You can see by adjusting those hue, saturation, and brightness sliders, when colorize is on, will allow you to turn the border into any color that you want. All right, that's a pretty simple example. Let me show you one that's more complex. I'm just going to hit the reset button to reset my border pane. This time, I want to add kind of a sloppy border look to it instead. So I'll go to the category, pop-up, and select sloppy borders. And then from the list, I'll just kind of flip through here until I find one that I like. Let's see here. You can see there really are a lot. All right, so here's kind of a nice thin one. I think I'll start with that one. And I'm just going to make my photo fit that a little bit better by adjusting that fit image slider again. I'm going to leave it nice and thick as well, because what I want to do is I'm actually going to stack multiple borders on top of each other. If you were a photo frame user, this was a common thing to do to allow you to create your own unique border look, was to stack them. And you can stack them here inside of effects as well. Now it looks pretty cool like this, but because I know I'm going to stack, I'm actually going to hit the invert button. This will actually flip what was white to dark and dark to white instead. So now I have a white thin edge and a dark outer edge. Then I'll stack another border on top of it to turn most of that dark back into white. So I'll just click on that Add Filter button, and I'll add another border on top. This time, let's use one of the emulsion series. I'll click on Category. I'll go up to Emulsion. There we go. I'll adjust my thickness to make it a little bit thinner here, because I really want that dark edge to appear more. There, that's looking pretty good. And then I can tweak which border I want from that border pop-up. I can just scroll through here until I find one that I want. There's a lot of different emulsion ones. So I'll just kind of flip through until I find one that I like. There we go. How about number 8? That looks pretty good. I can always use the rotate and flip options at the bottom to add a little bit more variety as well. If I have a border that I use a lot because I like it, I can't always flip it around so that it's less noticeable. There you go. Now you've created your own unique border look by stacking multiple borders on top of each other, just like you would in Photo Frame. And of course, you can always save this as a preset and use it over and over again. All right, one more border tip before I go. A lot of you guys out there use effects inside of Photoshop as a Photoshop plugin, and you want to have the ability to apply a border on its own layer. That's easy to do. Let me show you how. Before you go into effects, just simply add an empty layer on top of the photo that you're working on, and then go into effects. You notice how the preview still shows your photo inside of it. It's smart enough to get all of the layers from Photoshop when it creates the preview. I want to add kind of this brushed edge look that I picked from the brush category. I just add it just like I normally would inside of effects, make all my adjustments, and then hit save. Back in Photoshop, you'll notice that the border has been applied to that empty layer instead. It's no longer empty, and I can turn the border on or off, or turn the layer underneath on and off. You can see they're independent of each other. So now I can use any of my tools or techniques that I know in Photoshop and combine these together or create a layout with them. One of the things I like to do is use that border like a layer mask to tear the edge of the photo. Let me show you how I can do that. Just go to the layer that contains the border, hold down the Option key if you're on a Mac or the Control key if you're on Windows, and just click on the thumbnail. There you go. You can see how that activates a selection of the non-transparent area. I'm just going to turn that layer off so you can see the little marching ants. Then click down on your layer that you want to work on. Make sure your foreground color is set to black, and click on the new mask icon. Voila, it's now put in a layer mask. Now the only problem is the layer mask is backwards. It's black where I want it to be white and vice versa. Let me show you. I'm just going to turn the mask view on so you can see it better. There you go. That's what the mask looks like right now. I really want the opposite of that. So it's easy to flip that around in Photoshop just by using the invert command. So I'm just going to use Command I on the Mac or Control I on Windows, and we'll flip that around. So now it's white in the middle and dark on the edges. I'm going to turn that mask preview back off, and you'll see our final results. Our photo with a mask on it that makes it look like the edge was painted or torn off, just like that. All right, there you go. I hope that helps you guys out with borders and lets you create some really awesome results. Thanks for watching.